Well, good morning, everyone. We're really glad you joined us for this April 2022 TAM customer webinar. In our webinar today, we'll be learning about how VMware's Secure Access Service Edge solution, often referred to as SASE, how it fits into your network security needs. Before we get into the content, I want to review a few of the regular housekeeping announcements. So our next TAM customer webinar will be on May 12th, and John Diaz will be peeling back some of the layers of Project Ensemble, which is an evolution in our vRealize suite to unify and simplify cloud management services, add actionable business insights with an application focus. So our vRealize webinars with John Diaz are amongst some of the best attended for a reason. He does a great job, so I'm sure you won't want to miss this one. Hey, please make use of the Q&A feature of Zoom to ask any questions you have today. And if for some reason your question doesn't get fully addressed today, be sure and reach out to your TAM and ask them to follow up. At the end of today's session, you will be prompted to fill out a simple 2-question survey related to the value that you receive from this session and asking for any topic suggestions for future sessions. So your completion of this survey is really a valuable gift to us. We'd greatly appreciate you taking a couple minutes. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and your TAM can make the private YouTube link available to you. And then after a few months, we do make the recordings publicly available on the VMware TAM Services YouTube channel, where you can actually find the complete history of recordings. So with that covered, I'll turn things over to Ahmed to talk about SASE today.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmed Alsharif. I joined VMware 6 months ago. I came from a partner. Before that, I was with Cisco for 10 years. I've been in the industry for 25 years in networking and security background and data center. Today's session is going to be about this term SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. There are a lot of words and a lot of ways to describe SASE. When SASE came out in 2019, there are a lot of companies start merging into SASE. Companies are coming from a network-centric perspective, and other companies are coming from security-centric companies, and they are trying to provide SASE. There is a lot of misunderstanding of that term SASE, and then Gartner introduced another term called SSE, which confuses the people more and more. So in today's session, we're going to describe SASE in multiple ways. The best way to describe anything new is to see where that thing came from. What does it come to solve? What the problems that anybody will consider SASE to solve? Those are the most important things. And where SASE fits within the cloud journey, like what happened before SASE, why SASE was born, and then what's the future of SASE. And the best way to describe the high-level business outcomes of SASE to anyone is to start from transforming the business. And this is what I'm going to focus in the beginning in the first 10 minutes. When somebody is talking about transforming the business, it means changing the way the business is, changing the way that he's doing the business. And this means new cloud applications need to be provided. When we talk about cloud applications, we need to talk about hosting these cloud applications in the cloud and secure them. And this is what SASE is going to provide for these customers. Make that journey easy. Let's get started. I'm going to skip this. For the agenda, 5 minutes in the cloud journey, just to understand where SASE fits, how is it related to the SD-WAN, cloud security, cloud compute, and the future. And then I'll talk about the business outcomes very quick. And then the shift technically from a high-level perspective, from a data center-centric to a user-centric, or what they call zero trust network access approach. A lot of buzzword about zero trust network access. We're going to explain that as well. And then we're going to talk about why VMware solution is very unique in terms of providing full-blown SASE and zero trust network access and the value add that we have. And then I'll talk about how we can work with the partners, with the security partners, in case the customer would like to use somebody else's solution for the security and SD-WAN from VMware. And then I'll talk about some of the roadmap and some of the takeaways. All right. So just to understand where SASE fits within the cloud journey, if you look at this word here, the path toward no apps, this is what the hyperscaler, AWS, Google, GCP, everybody will market their solutions. More operation to the cloud, less operation to the customer, so the customer can focus in their own business, transform the business, and make their business better. SASE fits within the same journey. The more services you send to the cloud, networking and security today and tomorrow will be a lot more than security and SD-WAN, just to push the customer into the same direction toward no operation, less operation to the customer, more operation to the cloud. So let's see where SASE fits within this journey. Before 2008, as you can see my screen, there was nothing, no cloud services at all. Everything was legacy. And then between 2008 and 2014, we start to see some cloud compute in the industry. And we know the reason for that. The financial crisis in 2008 prompts a lot of companies to start selling their infrastructure as a service, just for the companies who are not, or for the enterprise customers who didn't know if they are going to be in the business next year or not, as a consumption model. And then in 2014, the SD-WAN came out. And the SD-WAN was actually the enabler for a lot of move to the cloud. It makes it so super easy to connect the cloud and the infrastructure and the users from anywhere to anywhere. And that led to a very unique situation for more than 70% of the organizations. Most of these organizations now, they have more applications in the cloud and they have more users outside of the organization, but they still connect these two through the data center. And that's the biggest problem that SASE came to solve. A lot of users outside connecting to a lot of applications outside because of the modernization and the easy connectivity that SD-WAN was able to provide them, but they connect everybody through the data center because of the security services they have in the data center. So what Gartner said, let's solve this problem and join these two together, the security and the SD-WAN under one construct called Secure Access Surface Edge. And this is nothing new. Let me zoom in inside the SASE so we can see the individual components that create SASE. On the right side, you see this security services. Everything here, security. And the left side, everything is SD-WAN and networking services. There are some major components, and there are like not major components that makes SASE. But everything you see here is not new. SASE did not bring any single feature or solution to the industry. What they did, they just joined the pre-existing services and features into one cloud consumption model called SASE. Now, here is the key word. The SASE will not provide any value until you have this SASE under one integrated solution. If your solution is not integrated, then SASE will not give you any benefits. And that's the most important part. You can pick and choose these services from anywhere, from company X, company Y, but if you build it yourself, you're not going to get any value from SASE. Because if you read Gartner SASE report that came out in 2019, the reason why they joined these two together to minimize the number of agents at the user side, so you have less operation, less overhead, and to make sure you have unified policy, the business outcomes that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So the keyword here is again, integrated solution. Let's move forward and see the other framework that Gartner created as well. 2021, last year, Gartner created another framework called SSE, Secure Surface Edge. And those are the two terms that you're going to hear about all the time. And the SSE is nothing but a subset of the SASE, the security services that make SASE. Gartner took that security services in different framework. Again, that framework value will be provided only if you provide these services in one integrated solution. That's the key word again here. But let's move forward after this and see what's the future of these two. Now, the choice for any customer for transforming the business or for securing the business will be two choices, either to go SASE or to go SSE. So which one to choose will be based on the future of each one of these. Let's see what Gartner said about SASE in the first place. I'll give you some few seconds to read what Gartner said about the future of SASE, and then I'll continue. So basically what Gartner is saying, the future will continue to have this kind of connectivity. And the 5G will be the accelerator to have more users outside, having high-speed connectivity to the network, and the more needs for the edge compute. Why the edge compute is super important in the future? Because the edge compute will bring the applications very close to the users. When you think about transforming the business or having a new cloud applications, your most important person in any organization is the user, the one who's executing the business. You want this person to have high response. So the compute that sits somewhere in the data center or in the internet will not be enough to provide that kind of high speed, especially when 5G comes as major surface or major disruption for the whole thing. Imagine you have 7 gig or 5 gig connectivity to the 5G tower. It doesn't make sense to send your traffic all the way to the internet, to the application over less than that. So the edge compute will be required to provide high-speed connectivity for this high-speed application performance to this person by bringing the compute to the tower or closer to the user to be able to provide high speed. And we see what AWS is doing. AWS last year introduced something called AWS Wavelength, which is an AWS infrastructure in Verizon 5G towers. So you can buy infrastructure as a service from Verizon, and you choose that infrastructure to be physically exist in Verizon 5G tower. And then you put your application in that tower physically. So the users around that tower with 5G will have connectivity to that application over high-speed connections from the 5G without leaving that tower. So this is where the future is going for SASE, all right? More compute, more services to the edge. Let's see what's the future, and let's continue here. Once this happens, like 2022 and plus, the compute will join the SASE, and this will be changed to something like SASE. The name is not important. Actually, Sanjay created that name because it has compute services in it. So this model or this framework that's going to happen in the future, when the compute joins the SD-WAN and security, then we'll have security, networking, and 5G, cloud compute and content delivery network, and multi-cloud all in one integrated solution. We do have all of these services today, but we don't have them as an integrated solution. A lot of people still struggling in what integrated solution means. It means these devices or solutions are working together to provide the response. Let me give you an example so you understand what I'm talking about, because that's the key point before I start describing the architecture that VMware is providing. Let's assume somebody has an SD-WAN solution and somebody is managing it like an SD-WAN or network admin. And he's happy, he thinks everything he configured in that SD-WAN is going to provide the best application performance. That's one component of the solution. And then another component of the solution, let's assume it's the user experience, like our ANI or somebody's else, like user monitoring and experience. If that user monitoring solution sees the application or detects that the application is not running very well, then the administrator has to go to that monitoring station, see what's happening from the application perspective, and then go to another monitoring screen or admin screen and change the SD-WAN in order to make the application runs very well. That's in the separate solutions. When these two integrated, like what we have in VMware, ANI is integrated with the SD-WAN, then the ANI or user monitoring experience will inject the changes that is needed to make that application performance perfect. That's a proactive solution. It does not require an admin to do anything, and that's what integrated means. It's a lot harder than having these individual, but that's what going to provide less time to the users, send the customer toward no operations. Okay, so that's the future of SASE. Let's see now what's the future of the SSE. Now, if somebody is adopting this, he's a customer who's really looking to modernize the application, transforming the business, because everything here will be needed when you are in that journey. So let's see what's the future of the SSE. And the SSE, again, it's a security services part of SASE. Gartner also said about the SSE, those are just a collection of multiple security services in the cloud. That's pretty much it. It's a group of security services in the cloud in one integrated solution. Yes, it has value. The value is super important. Nobody can live without security, but that's pretty much it. That's the full stop. I'm not going anywhere with that thing. If the customer trying to adopt or implement SSE, then that's the last thing that he's going to do from that provider. Let's assume the provider is Zscaler. They are the major player in this space, SSE. They give you the best security. Let's assume their services is the best security services today. Then the next step for the customer is to have something in the future for the cloud compute, CDN, something other than the security. The journey does not stop at the security. The users who are accessing the applications, serving your customers, they don't see anything in the underlay. They see only one thing. They see the application performance. And application performance needs a lot more than security. That's the difference between SSE and SASE. So for the long journey, the thing that really helps the customer to modernize and transform the business will be SASE. If the customer is just interested in the security part of it, and he doesn't need to modernize, he doesn't need to move forward after that in the future, then SSE will be enough just to secure the connectivity, if he's happy with the connectivity. And different customers will go a different way. Like Starbucks or Pizza Cafe or one of these customers who don't really serve the users and give users anything but internet connectivity, then SSE will be pretty much good for them, like distributed branches all over the places, and I just need security in the cloud, and everybody's going to the cloud anyways. I don't need SD-WAN, I don't need anything else. So that will be a perfect scenario for customers like that. But for someone modernizing the application, changing the way that how he's doing the business, then SASE will be the right choice, okay? So having this journey in front of us, now we know SASE, we know SSE, where VMware fits within the whole thing. Here's where VMware fits within this journey. We have everything that is required to provide SASE. We have the compute experience, we have the networking and security, and we are working in the 5G private and public as well to provide connectivity to the private to the campus, and then in the future integrate that 5G with the public providers. And we have the CDN, content delivery network, and we have the multi-cloud. We have everything that the customer needs to build that infrastructure or the platform that really helps the customer to modernize and transform the business. VMware is the only company who has experience with all of these services. Now, moving forward from here, you're going to see us focusing more in the integration part, because again, without integrating these components, there will be no value. We are doing some integrations today, especially in the ENI self-healing with the SD-WAN. We're doing another integration that Sanjay introduced last month or the month before, where we are working with Dish Network to provide compute edge into their towers. So those are the things that really makes VMware fits into that long-term journey. VMware focuses in the high-level picture of providing a complete platform for somebody to move forward for his business applications, modernizing the business and modernizing the applications, transforming the business, okay? Let me move to the second. If there is any question in the background, Andy, I'll be happy to answer them before I move to the business outcomes.
Yeah, thank you. There are not any questions currently.
Okay. So the key things that you need to, again, I should have mentioned this in the beginning. SASE, most of the time, is an executive discussion. It's not for engineering. It's not for an IT manager, because they don't see these values. The one who's highly concerned about transforming the business is the CIO, the CEO, the CTO. The people are really looking into changing the business that they are working on, not the engineering level. The engineer will decide based on the feature, bits and bytes, who's providing this feature better than anybody else, and I'm going to make my decision based on that kind of view. Very, very, very low level view of the technical evaluation. You need to pitch SASE to the executives, and the executives understand business, understand transformation, and application modernization. This is what you need to focus when you pitch SASE. Again, the sales cycle has multiple phases. The first phase should not be a technical discussion by all means. Don't pitch SASE as a security solution or as a networking solution. Pitch it as a problem solver to solve the application modernization and a platform to help the customer to transform their business. So some of the key business outcomes of SASE, if somebody implements SASE fully with integrated solution, not buying these individual components from all over the places, there will be nothing out of that. Reducing the total cost of ownership. A lot of people didn't understand what does that really means. It means that the customer will have less responsibility internally, so he can focus, or his team can focus on something else, on the actual business. You don't want to manage IT if you are not an IT company. You want to focus on your business, whatever that business is. You don't want to be busy like connecting multiple components, managing multiple things, hiring people, being worried about your security and connectivity. You don't want to do that if you are transforming the business. All right. So the other thing is distributed architecture. Again, if somebody here for 25 plus years, like myself, you see that world is going to word like centralized solution when we had mainframe in the 80s, and then we became a distributed architecture when the PCs came out, and then we try to centralize it again and go to the start using some centralization in the data center, and now we are going back to the distributed architecture. And there is a reason why we are going back to the distributed architecture, because the users are everywhere, the applications are everywhere. 10 years ago, everything was internally. The user has to travel or like drive to where he works in order to do the business. The pandemic came in and disrupted everything. Even the customers who didn't believe that remote workers will provide very good work, now they believe in it. A lot of users are not coming to the office anymore. A lot of customers are really adopting and investing in this distributed model. So it's a fact that you need to work with a distributed architecture. You need to support compute and services at these edges. And the edge means a lot of things. If you talk to a service provider edge, they will say, oh, far edge or near edge. My tower is far edge. My near edge is the PE device that connects that tower. If you talk to a customer, his edge means the device that he has in that branch. So, but the common thing when we talk about distributed architecture is the closest point to the users. This closest point to the user must provide a lot of services, not only connectivity like what we used to have in the past. Okay, so transforming the security and transforming the infrastructure. These two things became like one fact when it comes to SASE. I'm transforming my connectivity, connecting anything, 5G, non-5G, everything will be under that connectivity infrastructure when I'm consuming SASE. There is no SASE solution without transforming the infrastructure. If you talk to Zscaler or Netscope or somebody who doesn't have SD-WAN, then there will be no transformation for the network, because Zscaler, Netscope, or the SSE providers will simply ask the customer to connect to them using IPsec tunnels to the cloud. So IPsec tunnels is a legacy. It's not transforming, and it's not capable to do any kind of SD-WAN optimization. So when you consider SASE, make sure that infrastructure piece is a pillar onto that solution. You need an SD-WAN to transform that infrastructure. That's number one. Number two, transforming the security. A lot of companies has a lot of services, but you need to have them in an integrated way where the customer can focus now in creating the policies. I don't want to be busy managing these services anymore. I want to shift my security team from managing boxes to managing and creating policy that really drive my business. That's what the focus needs to be. That's the transformation of the security. If you don't have these two, you don't have SASE. If you have only in the one in the right side, transforming the security, and you have very good security component, then you are a SASE player, SSE player, like Zscaler, Netscope, and these guys. Okay, so those from an infrastructure perspective. The last two things is actually related to the business, all the way to the application layer. The first one is accelerating the application modernization. And again, let me put that in context so you understand the distributed architecture and application modernization. When somebody is modernizing the application, this modernization will be required to transform the business, by the way. You're taking a big monolithic or application that you have in the data center or even in the cloud that has multiple components, and then you split these components, you peel it off, and you run it in a microservice, in a container or multiple containers, and then you put it somewhere in the cloud, or maybe in the data center, or maybe in both sides. So for the modernization to work very well, one application becomes like 20 containers. Now, where to place these containers? And what's the security and connectivity that I need between these containers that really makes the one application that I had in the past in the data center? I didn't have any security or networking requirements when I have all components in one server in my data center. I didn't concern about it because they are internally communicating through the server. No networking needs, no security needs. Now, if I modernize that application to get the benefit of it, to scale every single component alone, and we are doing this inside VMware PUBs, we are doing the same exact thing, modernization. We are splitting these services that used to be one big application into small microservices. So now you are worried about the connectivity and security. SASE will come as a glue to connect and secure all of these components when you put them in the cloud. So think about SASE as an enabler for application modernization. Mr. Customer, here's the 20 microservices running in 40 containers or 50 containers. You want to put like 10 containers in the front end to respond fast to the user? That's fine. These containers will be connected with the SD-WAN and secured by SASE services to the other microservices component who physically exist in AWS infrastructure or AWS infrastructure and your own data center. You don't have to worry about where these are located. You just need to worry about the best application performance for your users. That's what's going to be important to the customers. Okay. The last thing is this SASE will enable more digital business scenarios. Like, for example, somebody acquiring another company, or a small division in one company will be acquired by another company. And I had this when I was in a partner. A lot of customers are looking to buy or actually acquire a division from another customer or another entity. I had the project to split one department from one aerospace company to another aerospace company. It took them 2 years almost just to agree on who's accessing who, how can we split the application and take it from that cage to another location within the same physical environment. It was a mess. SASE will make that scenario a lot easier because SASE identifies the user. And this is what's going to be my next slide. If you are working in the user level, user application performance, high performance access and security, and making sure that user access only the application that he needs. So in a scenario like this, when company acquired another company, then there will be users from the other company accessing an application that exists in the main company. How can you provide this today? Most of the solutions today rely on the VPN. Give the external users a VPN and then bring them to a firewall. Then after that, make sure you give them a specific VLAN so they cannot go anywhere. And then land them in the application, authenticate them. It's a mess. It's a lot of work. That's what makes it super hard when two companies acquired each other, one acquired another company, to merge that companies together and have everybody accessing the same applications. So SASE will make that business scenario super easy because you are identifying the users and then assigning the application that user can access. And I'm going to show you this in the architecture slide to understand what I'm talking about. And by the way, you can customize these business outcomes based on your customer situation. If you are talking to a customer who's healthcare, then customize these things to fit within the healthcare, especially the last two. Like, what healthcare applications are we talking about? And there is a lot of scenarios. Reach out to me and I'll tell you how to customize it for a healthcare customer. All of the healthcare customers, for example, they are highly concerned about the PHI information, protected health information. I have a lot of data. I need to modernize it. I need to have somebody, a researcher, to access this data to create an application to serve the patient. But I'm worried about breaking the HIPAA compliance, doing something that I suppose not to do. Then reach out to me to customize these business outcomes to make sure that healthcare customer is satisfied buying SASE to modernize the application and give anybody access to the data that he has in place. All right, so let's move to the technical part, high level. If there's any questions, Andy, I can answer now. I can move forward to the technical high level approach.
No open questions.
Excellent. So now we finished the communication that we need to do with the executives. Now, if you are presenting this to somebody and the C-level is leaving the room, it's not super important because you already sold him the idea of modernization, the business outcomes, and the journey to SASE. Now, this is for the IT manager or somebody technically needs to understand what's going to happen. What's the actual problem that SASE came to solve? Let's see what's happening. We talked about the major customers now have more users outside than the inside and more applications outside than the inside. But the problem is these guys, the security services that sits in the data center that we invested a lot in it. Big firewalls, 10 gig, 40 gig, IPSs, URL filtering, web security. I need to utilize these services because this is what was happening in the past. In the past, branches, data center, everybody is located locally, no application, no cloud applications. Now, SD-WAN makes it super easy to move applications to the cloud. A lot of users, a lot of customers in the situation where more users outside, more applications outside. Here is the traffic flow. Now, most of the traffic flow goes back to the data center somehow, virtually. Even if you have an SD-WAN, you're still backhauling the traffic to the data center just to utilize these guys. And then once you run the service or the traffic over the IPS and firewall and all of these devices, then the traffic can go to the local application or can go to the public internet applications. This is what's happening today for most of the customers. This hairpinning is what they call it data-centric approach, data center-centric approach. The data center is in the heart of the communication. Why would I have my data center in the center of the communication if I have my user outside and the application that he is accessing is also outside? I need to be outside as well. So the drawback or the problem with this approach is the following: high latency because you are backhauling and hairpinning the traffic, high operation cost because you are investing and maintaining all of these devices and you are worried about these devices working together. I need to make sure my IP, if I'm using one company like Cisco or Palo Alto, the legacy security providers, they have a management stations to manage these individual components. They dictate and mandate that every single one of these to have single software version, update version, make sure this version matches that version. You are always worried about maintaining and taking care of these devices to get the best out of it. And if there is any security breach, you'll not be able to know about it immediately because you are seeing only yourself. You are not communicating with the external world unless the provider who's providing you the firewall and IPS is providing you with that feed. So those are the maximum problems with the complex solution. Lack of agility. We remember from the data center days, if you upgrade the firewall to 10 gig or the IPS to 10 gig, you need to make sure that IPS is in line with the firewall and both of them are 10 gig capable. If you have 1 gig IPS sits behind firewall who's 10 gig, then you are not going to be able to push 10 gig because that IPS only supports 1 gig. So you always have to worry about where I place these devices. And some customers start to buy like another device to make sure that I can distribute the traffic into multiple components or multiple devices to be able to provide high speed connectivity for all of these things. So very complex, not something that's fun to work with. And most of my IT people are really busy managing these devices. So we need to move away from this approach. We need to move, and the whole world actually is moving away from this approach. Everybody understands this problem, but I put it there just to be on the same page. So SASE will solve this problem, okay? Let's see what SASE did to solve this problem. Backhauling the traffic to the data center because of these services is the problem. Then the first thing that we need to do is not to backhaul anything. We're not going to provide any virtual connectivity to the data center anymore. And instead, we're going to move these services somewhere in the internet and call them point of presence. And this is generic like description. It's not related to VMware or anybody. This is just a concept. So we understand what the concept is before we talk about VMware solution. All right. So all of the services that we have in the data center now are provided in one construct called point of presence. Okay. And then the connectivity, obviously now it's not going to the data center, it is going to this point of presence. So you connect to the point of presence, virtual connectivity. And then here's the major thing that we start doing to move from the data center to a user-centric zero trust network access. Before you get this user anything, or the one who's connecting to the pub, any connectivity, you need to make sure that he's authenticated. Once you authenticate the user, then you grant him access or her access to the application, regardless if the application is in the data center or in the cloud. The user or the entity, we call it the entity, must be authenticated in the first place. You must know who's who. And this entity can be multiple things. This user right here, he can be multiple things. He can be the guest user, the anywhere user. It can be the user and his PC to make sure that his PC is clean, using any client software that makes sure the user PC is clean. And you can create that entity based on user, PC, and time of the day, location, geolocation, IoT devices. We call all of these variants as an entity. So you authenticate the entity and then you grant access. If you are doing these basic things, then you are doing zero trust network access approach. You're focusing and connecting the users to the application. You're not connecting users or PCs to the network like what you used to have in the past. That's what zero trust network access. If you don't have access to the application, then this user will never see the application in the first place. That's what's important. I don't want anybody to be compromised and being able to go all over the places and discover the network. And this is what used to happen in the past, right? Why we are doing segmentation and micro segmentation in the data center. Everybody, like in the last 10 to 15 years, we were worried about segmentations, micro segmentations, NSX using micro segmentations, having between the compute virtual machines a firewall to make sure that virtual machines cannot communicate without a firewall between them. East-west traffic, VLANs, VRFs, and the enterprise network. We just worry about where the user can go if he's compromised. We are not worried about the clean user. The user goes to his application and the application will authenticate him to give him access. But if the user PC is compromised, then the attacker or the malware will be able to have a network access. And that was the problem. Network access means I can discover the network. I can know which IPs do I have in my network. Then we start doing segmentation. So to shrink that attack surface to a smaller VLANs, a smaller VRF. Now with the zero trust network access that everybody's looking to implement, we're taking this all the way to the application and user level. If you don't have access to the application as a user, you cannot see the application. That's it. If you get compromised, then the only thing that you can see is the applications that you can access. You didn't see anything in the underlay. You didn't see networking. You cannot discover networking, cannot do anything. That's the zero trust network access. Now, to implement zero trust network access, you can do it in different places. I'm going to talk about the SASE implementation of zero trust network access. But this is the concept. If you are wondering where zero trust network access is important. All right. So let's see now how VMware was building SASE, because SASE will utilize zero trust network access, user-centric approach in the heart, because you cannot provide SASE if you don't know who the user is. Remember the problem that SASE came to solve. Users everywhere, applications everywhere. So the whole thing to connect user to application, I need to know the user and I need to know the application. That's the whole game, all right? So let's see why VMware is very unique when creating that architecture, when providing zero trust network access approach end to end, and why it's important to see the VMware value add. First of all, any cloud service, somebody saying I'm providing a cloud service, that person or that company must have a lot of POPs, a lot of point of presence. You are telling the customers, you are telling your IT users, IT admin, don't send and backhaul the traffic to the data center, because that is a problem. And instead, bring the traffic to me in the point of presence. The first question that comes to my mind, how many POPs do you have? If you don't have enough POPs, then I'll have somebody in California connected to a POP in New York because you don't have any closer point of presence. And that defeated the purpose of hairpinning, solving the problem of hairpinning. If I need to go to my data center, which is probably Nevada, as I'm giving just an example to understand the customer perception. If my data center in Switch, Las Vegas, and I'm backhauling my traffic to Switch, and you are telling me, hey, come to me because that's a hairpinning, I need to solve it to you, the low latency, come to my POP and your POP in Chicago, then the customer will not like that. You must have a lot of POPs all over the places closer to the users. And this POP will play another role as well in the end-to-end connectivity. But the number of POPs by itself adds a lot to the customers, means a lot. In VMware, we have 150 SD-WAN gateways. We are converting these gateways to SASE POPs, where we provide services, security services inside these point of presence. We are targeting 54 by 2022 or 2023. And then we are working more with our partners to build their SASE POPs inside the service provider. So we're going to have a lot of POPs, a lot more than anybody like who's competing with VMware from the enterprise-centric providers like Cisco, Palo Alto, and others. Okay, so the second thing is, and by the way, these POPs are very close to the service providers' POPs, or in the same location. The second thing is we are optimizing the traffic from the user to these POPs. We are not sending IPsec tunnels. We are not using legacy connectivity to these POPs. We are using SD-WAN, and that's the key differentiation point between VMware and everybody else. Having an SD-WAN in these point of presence in the cloud is a key component. We are coming from SD-WAN perspective. Other people are coming to build SASE from a security perspective. Here is the difference. We are coming from the SD-WAN. We have SD-WAN all the way to these POPs. So what does that mean to the customer? It means high performance, application performance, high speed, optimized connectivity. If I have multiple internet connectivity from my users or my branches or my data center, I have no problem because the SD-WAN will take me to these POPs with high speed. Today we provide 5 gig, and we're working into modernizing these POPs to provide 25 gig by the end of the year, and then 100 gig and 200 gig in the future years. So that high speed connectivity means application performance, high application performance. That's the best way to describe SASE movement to the customer, because you are moving the customer from his own data center that he used to backhaul his data center over maybe an SD-WAN connection. You are giving him another SD-WAN connection in the cloud, terminating his traffic in another location, but still SD-WAN. That's important. If you are coming from a security-centric company, like let's assume Zscaler, you are telling the customer, hey, bring the traffic to me. Then the customer will ask how. And then you give the customer an option for IPsec tunnel or GRA tunnel. And both of these are legacy, not high speed, not optimized, and that's the problem. That's the problem. That's the difference between somebody who's security-centric, focusing only in the security part, versus another company like VMware focusing in the whole entire picture. Yes, I need to provide you security, but I need to provide you with the high speed. High speed so your users who are working in the application will not have any problems. Again, focus on the application modernization and the transforming the business. Nobody would like to transform the business and give user slow connections to the application. The user will not be happy. What the users will do if he goes back home and open VPN and the application is not performing very well, what would the user do? The users most of the time try to shut down or turn off the VPN so he can get high speed. The user does not see anything in the underlay. He doesn't see security. He doesn't see anything that you are built in the infrastructure. He only concerned about application performance. So any solution that anyone is providing as an alternative to the data center must address the high speed requirements. Otherwise, the solution will not have any value. Okay, and we have this for the SD-WAN. We have also the secure access, which is a remote solution for the remote users who don't have SD-WAN. But again, that traffic will be also terminated in the same point of presence. Giving the users or the customers one location to replace their data center, yet have all connectivity requirements, have all security requirements, and high-speed connectivity. That's the unique part of the solution. The architecture, what makes us different than anybody else. And then the user experience, the example that I give you guys in the beginning, user experience and self-healing, which monitors the user experience once you do that movement. Hey, Andy, sorry for the interruption. Do you hear background from my side? Because they are doing something outside. Do I need to, or is it okay? Andy?
Yeah.
Is it okay, or should I continue, or the background noise is a lot?
I'm not hearing the noise.
Okay, excellent. So we'll continue.
Yeah.
So the user experience that I talked about in the beginning, it's extremely important, because here is the problem that most of the customers will have. If I do some changes, like a change in my data center, I moved the people from accessing my data center and I tell them now go to the cloud to get the security. How can I tell if the user is happy or not? That's the piece that we need to have all the time to make sure the user satisfaction is met. User needs to have application performance, high application performance. He doesn't care about what you do in the background. He doesn't care. He doesn't know where the traffic is going. I used to go to my data center to get firewall surface or IPS surface or URL filtering, and then access my application, and it works fine. Now you are moving these services to the cloud and my application performance is not good. So that's what concerns me. Yes, you provide me with better services in the cloud, but you are making my application performance very slow. This integrated solution that we have, we call it ENI, and user experience, and user intelligent user monitoring experience and self-healing. This software that runs on the edges gives us that view. It knows the application performance. It knows what's the good application response is. Based on that, it goes and do the changes that is needed in the SD-WAN to make sure that the user is happy, or at least integrates that kind of view with other elements in the SASE to make sure that the user is happy. That's the integration that we have today. We call it self-healing. More integration in the future will be the ANI will see a user misbehaving, like a user was sending 10 megabyte every day or every hour, and then suddenly he starts sending 100 gig like worth of traffic on the internet. It's still the traffic that he's sending is still good traffic, but it indicates something weird, right? So the ANI can go and talk to the cloud web security or firewall in the surfaces that run on the point of presence, to threaten the traffic flow for that user, just to make sure that we understand what's happening before we give him high-speed connectivity to the internet or to the applications. So this kind of integration between the components, since we have everything in one location, we can do that integration. That's the most important things. Again, remember from the first slide, SASE is all about integrating these individual components. It's not about providing them, because VMware exists before SASE. If you don't integrate them together, then there is no value. All right. Moving forward, everything that we have in the platform, a security component, SD-WAN, and the ENI, which is the user experience, will be managed from a single pane of glass. One management station means a lot to the customer's operation. If you are managing SD-WAN security component policy that I need to create to apply for all users from a single location, that's a plus for me. I don't want to jump between different management stations and have somebody trained in each one of them, just to make sure that I run the operation. If I have all of them in one location, that by itself means a lot for the operation. Why the operation? Reducing the total cost of ownership. That's what it means. If I spend less time managing my network, then I have more time to focus on my application performance or modernizing my application. That's why it is so super important. So far, so good. We covered everything that we need in the SASE. We covered the SD-WAN, we covered the security. So all of the security components are here, and we connect them with the SD-WAN, and we have the plus user monitoring and self-healing in the user side. So far, we provided everything that the SASE is asked for, SD-WAN and security. But we are not going to stop, as I've showed you in the first slide, that VMware is providing a lot more than that. And this is what the key plus point that we have over everybody else. When we talk about application modernization, again, I keep saying modernization because it means compute. It means end user compute. I want you to think about this edge device as a platform. Even the PUP will be the same thing as a platform. And this platform can host applications as part of SASE solution. Why this super important? You can move applications from the data center or the cloud all the way to the edge. And this, for me, the closest point to the users in the office or users in the remote site or in the 5G tower. If this edge in the 5G tower, then this is the closest point to the users. Why this application needs to be close to the user? Think about the use cases. Think about Tesla, self-driving car. I need to process a lot of data that the car is generating. When the car is moving, it's connected to the 5G tower. If I make that compute services within the tower itself, then there will be high response to the car. Then the action will be taken a lot faster than sending the traffic all the way to the data center somewhere in the internet to be processed. You need that kind of integration that the customer is looking for to modernize the application. These applications can be a subset of the main application that I talked about in the beginning. Those are the front end. Maybe I need to provide high-speed connectivity for the first web page that the customer is asking for. And then the back end can be in the data center or it can be in AWS. But I need to have this kind of flexibility. I need to be able, when I modernize my application, to put my cloud services anywhere. Who is providing me with that service? Who can provide me with one solution, one platform that provides all of these services together? That's what VMware is very unique. That's why I called my solution as, our solution is the best architecture supporting the current needs and the future vision. We are very focused in the future vision. A lot of competitors are focusing only to provide what is needed today. You need SD-WAN and security. Here is the SD-WAN and security. That's pretty much it. In the future, Mr. Customer, if you need CDN, if you need content delivery network to be one of the services to provide faster response to the users, I don't have it. Go and take it from AWS and GCP or Google Cloud Platform. That's the problem. If I need to go to the cloud and keep jumping between different data centers to get the services, then I'm not going to provide high speed performance to my users. Versus VMware, everything in one location, that will provide unique value add. One of the roadmap that we have is VDI termination. We know if you have a customer who has a VDI users, and now with the pandemic, they start sending these guys back home to work from home. And I have a lot of customers when I was in the partner having this problem. The user was working very well when he was within the data center or within high-speed access to the data center. And you send him home with the VDI client, and then all the traffic has to be backhaul to the data center because the VDI, the application performance was very, very bad, especially contact center agent. They need to communicate and talk to each other. So they hairpin the traffic to the data center all the time, and that caused a lot of problems. Imagine you are terminating the VDI in this PUP. So the user will have VDI connected to the PUP using SD-WAN, and then he go clear traffic from there to anywhere. That's a unique value for the VDI users. Who else is talking about this? Like from a competitor's standpoint, nobody has the experience that we do from a compute perspective. Think about the end-to-end, think about the application performance, then VMware will be the only company who can provide this application performance and the underlay infrastructure. All right, that's the architecture. Most important thing in SASE is the architecture, not the individual component. Architecture, and architecture. Okay. Before I move forward, because some customers, they don't like to have everything from VMware as one solution. What if can we integrate with other partners, security partners? Before I do that, I'm going to ask Andy if there's any questions in the background.
Yeah, thanks for checking. No questions right now.
Okay, excellent. So now let's move to the next section, which VMware is not the main player, and the customer would like to utilize Zscaler or utilize Palo Alto or utilize Netscope for the security services. So the solution will look like the following. Here is the,
Hey, Ahmed,
yes,
we did have one question come in that maybe if we could just address before
yes,
you go on. The graph looks like you are placing Kubernetes on an SD-WAN CPE. Is that right?
yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, so Kubernetes will be the platform working on the edge itself. And this Kubernetes will have multiple virtual components, microservices, for example, running on the edge. And those microservices or the applications can be one application, it can be part of the application. When we talk about modernization, it means it can be anything. But here is the platform provided to you and as a capability, part of the SASE solution or SASE solution. And that's what's important. I need to have that application as part of the solution, not as an individual. Anybody can run virtual machine in this platform, by the way. Cisco router will have a capability of having a virtual machines running on that router. It's not a big deal. Having it as a part of the solution, integrated solution, will be the key point here. Let me give you an example, because since the question came for these applications, imagine the same. Like I live in LA. The Super Bowl was here last month. Imagine people are paying thousands of dollars for that ticket, paying hundreds of dollars for the parking lot. Will they pay $50 or $100 to get extra services while they are watching the game, to post pictures, to do like live post for their friends and share the experience with their friends? They will. But the service provider will not be able to provide them because there are thousands of people in that location. The tower is not capable to provide everybody with high-speed connectivity because they are coming and connected to physically one tower. One of my friends work with Verizon, and they put multiple towers, 5G towers within the stadium to be able to provide people with just connectivity. Imagine that tower has an application platform within the tower itself. When the 5G users start to increase, or a lot of demand from these users are coming for compute services, imagine that tower integrates with the infrastructure provider like VMware to spin up more virtual machines in that tower to have faster response to the users. That will change the whole experience. That's what's important. When you have that as part of your solution, then you are talking about different services that anybody else cannot provide.
That's really helpful. Thanks.
All right. All right. The second part of this is when VMware works with somebody else, like partner is providing the services, the security services in the cloud. And then you go to that security services using legacy TLS or DTLS session from the remote users. And then you go with SD-WAN from that user. And the problem with that, I'm going so fast. And you're going with SD-WAN from the branch users to the cloud services with IPsec tunnel and GRE tunnel. That's what's the model that Zscaler, Netscope, even Palo Alto, even Cisco, who have SD-WAN, they are still going to the cloud with legacy component. Remember when I talked about building SASE, nobody has SASE in 2019. They do have the component, nothing is new. We do have SD-WAN, we did have all of the security component. But the providers who provide security in the past, before 2019, they have it in the cloud like this. And they ask the customers, if you want to connect to my POP for the security, you come to me as a legacy or DTLS, TLS session from the users, not legacy, that's the only option. Or you come IPsec tunnel GRE from the SD-WAN router. Even if this SD-WAN router, you are still coming IPsec tunnel. That's because they are only providing security. They are not providing SD-WAN. In the other side, where VMware is an SD-WAN company in the first place, Villa Cloud, you are coming to these POPs with an SD-WAN. So that's the difference. High speed optimized versus IPsec tunnel, which is not optimizing the traffic, not doing anything. Now, the problem with that is the speed. This IPsec tunnel is limited at max, like Zscaler is able to provide 400 megabit per second. Cisco, 250 megabit per second. That's it. Imagine this branch has 20 employees or 40 employees. And you're telling the customer, hey, don't backhaul the traffic to the data center, and instead bring it to me as an SD-WAN provider like Cisco, but you are coming to me with 250 megabit per second. Will the customer accept that? The customer will not accept that because that's very slow from connectivity perspective. What does that mean to the end user experience? Very bad. because yes, you are providing more security. Let's assume the best security in the cloud. Then the user performance over this tunnel will be super bad. Okay, so that's the problem. This is when the service provider or the security service provider is working individually alone without an SD-WAN provider. Let's see how VMware can really add value to this picture and change it. Who's doing this? Zscaler is doing it, Netescope, Cisco, and Palo Alto. Even Cisco and Palo Alto, they do have SD-WAN devices, but their SD-WAN devices cannot go SD-WAN to the PUBs. Why? Because they don't have SD-WAN in the PUBs. That's the problem that Cisco and Palo Alto has. Palo Alto has CloudGenix, and Cisco has Viptela or Meraki. None of these devices has an SD-WAN part in the PUBs. They go legacy to these PUBs. They go SD-WAN between themselves. That's fine. That's different. But once they take the traffic to the PUBs, they go legacy IPsec tunnel. Let's see what VMware value add in this. When we replace these SD-WAN with our infrastructure SD-WAN and gateways, immediately these legacy connections will be converted to high-speed optimized connectivity to these gateways that sits in the cloud in the close proximity to these PUBs. We are very close to these PUBs physically, like maybe you are in the same Equinix or have high-speed connectivity peering between our gateway and these PUBs. That's what makes the connectivity super, super fast with our SD-WAN. We are going SD-WAN all the way to the doorstep of these service providers, the security service providers, versus going legacy IPsec tunnel. And then we have the connectivity back to back. Okay, that's the value add that VMware is providing if somebody choose to go with Netescope, for example. Zscaler has a special treatment because before I go to the Zscaler, actually the ANI will be also part of the solution because it provides us with this user experience view right from the user side and being able to change the SD-WAN if the application is not performing very well with the self-healing. Zscaler has a special treatment with VMware because they are very close partner to us. So if we replace that service provider, security service provider with Zscaler, then with Zscaler, we have back-to-back connectivity. We call it cloud-to-cloud, 2 gigabit per second, special connections between our gateway and their gateway or point of presence. That gives us a high-speed connectivity to the Zscaler. Zscaler alone or Zscaler with Cisco or Palo Alto, they have only legacy IPsec tunnel, GRE tunnel, limited with 400 megabit per second at max. We were able to increase that by having this back-to-back connectivity with Zscaler. Very special communication between VMware and Zscaler. If the customer is looking to provide the security using somebody else, not the VMware. This solution is, SD-WAN is a fundamental pillar in adding significant value to the collaborative SASE solution. If you are building your own SASE, make sure you have high-speed connectivity from VMware to anybody else that you like. If you like to work with Zscaler, that's fine, but make sure the VMware is the SD-WAN provider to be able to push enough traffic to the cloud. You don't want to invest a lot in the cloud security without being able to push enough traffic to the cloud security. You don't want to be able to get a lot of security services in the cloud and being worried or still ask your admin to worry about having multiple connections because of the performance, managing the SD-WAN and being worried about these components. If you want to solve the whole entire problem, then the focus will be one provider that provides the end-to-end. I need one provider to provide me with the SD-WAN, end user experience, and cloud security like VMware. That's in the integrated solution. But again, we are not limiting ourselves to work in silo. We can work with partners as well. Any questions?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, I'm about to finish. I will go over this roadmap very quick. Make sure that you look at the latest and greatest date from the roadmap and comparison, because those are changing all the time. Very quickly, I'm not going over them one by one, but here is the features, the main features that you need to pay attention to when you pick and select which vendor you want to work with. All of these things that related to the SD-WAN are part of the VMware solution. So that's very unique to us. The first SD-WAN and single pane of glass, DMPO, which is the underlay optimization, and the SD-WAN in the POPs. Those are the unique thing that nobody has in the industry. You look at everybody, even the Cisco, who has SD-WAN, they cannot have SD-WAN. They don't have SD-WAN in their umbrella point of presence. That's a unique differentiation. Why SD-WAN is important? Again, application performance. The roadmap, the location of the POPs as well is super important. You need to understand how many POPs everyone has when you want to compare a vendor to another vendor. You need to understand the location of these POPs, because physically you're not going to your data center, you're going to these POPs. So the customer would like to understand where my users are going to be connected physically. If you buy cloud services from GCP or AWS, the first thing that you need to select is the location, where you want to have that virtual machine to be physically placed. The connectivity will be provided anyways, but the physical location of that service is extremely important for data locality, regulations, multiple reasons. Being able to provide services in anywhere in the world is a key component. We invested a lot in these locations. Go back to our Vault page to see where those are. I think last week they approved another 5 point of presence, 2 in the Middle East and 3 in Europe. And I think 2 in Europe and 1 in the US, to be able to provide geolocation services. Some companies and some countries are actually mandating, if you provide security services for people within that country, to stay local within the country. That's extremely important to invest more in these SASE POPs. VMware is investing a lot in these POPs because they were SD-WAN POPs, and we are just converting them and add some of these, and to our service providers will add more for more of these POPs. Okay, these numbers can be changed all the time. So I think Zscaler now they have more than 140, I think 150 or 160 plus. So look at the latest number of the SD-WAN or SASE POPs. Finally, the roadmap. The roadmap, it's extremely important to be the first one to tell your customer, hey, we don't have this service yet. We will have it like in the future. You don't want your competitor to provide this information to your customer. If your competitor said, oh, VMware don't have DNS security, you need to be the first one telling the customer, yes, we don't have this one. It's not our priority today. Our priority to do other things, but it will be available. It's a matter of time to provide this service in the future. And again, we know from the history, like if you compete with anyone, having a feature is not extremely difficult. It's a matter of time. And we know NSX, VMware NSX versus ACI, Cisco ACI, when they were the same, the first 2 SDN data center software-defined networking solution in the industry, competing with each other. There were like some missing feature from Cisco ACI versus NSX. And then after sometimes the ACI start picking up, developing more features. That's what's going to take the companies to catch up. But the most important thing in any solution is the architecture. If you don't have the architecture, then you don't have a story. That's the key point here. There is no way for Cisco and Palo Alto or Zscaler to go tomorrow and start developing or adding SD-WAN to their POPs. It will take them 10 years because it's a lot of investments, a lot of hardware that they have to purchase and put it in their POPs to be able to provide SD-WAN in that POPs. These competitors, they didn't have this infrastructure in the first place before SASE. And now they want to be SASE. So for them, it's a lot more difficult than us, was coming from an SD-WAN perspective, already having SD-WAN all over the places in these POPs. We just need to add security services. And we are OEM, most of these services from Mello, so it's already implemented, it's already there. And we choose to move these services to our POP. We are not letting the customer to come to us and then jump from our data center to AWS or anywhere else where the service is running, security service is running, in order to get that service implemented. That's the key component here. Everything in one location. That's what makes our solution very, very unique. Missing some of the features is not a big deal. It's a matter of time to catch up, and we will be competing with everyone and better than everyone. in addition, of course, to the things that the other people cannot even talk about it from a compute infrastructure, modernization, and multi-cloud perspective. And some of the takeaways, like pitch SASE to the executive first. Very important. If you talk to an engineer, then you are talking to the wrong person, because the engineer does not see the value of SASE. The engineer has all of these components. What you're going to sell him? You're going to sell him SD-WAN. He has SD-WAN. Cloud web security, he maybe has that services. You're not selling anything new. What you are selling is an integrated solution. Integrated solution means less total cost of ownership. Vision, nobody understands that vision except the executives. So pitch SASE to the executives. And again, when it comes to the technical evaluation, you already sell your vision to the executive. Everything after that becomes very easy. Focus on the vision and the architecture. That's what's important in SASE, not the individual component. I have some of the account managers asking me, can I have a list of features for cloud web security? I want to send it to someone to compare to Zscaler cloud web security. And I told him this is the worst way to do it, because Zscaler now has more services or more features than us. One of the roadmap that I have next year, Zscaler already has it. So what's the value of having apple-to-apple comparison and this kind of like competition? So you need to focus on the architecture. That's what makes our solution very unique, and that's what makes sense to the customer. Present our use cases. Make sure that you always use the hyperscaler approach toward the no operation. Make sure you talked about the 5G and what the hyperscaler are doing with the 5G from a distributed architecture, because this will immediately bring the compute services to the executive mind, because this is important for them. Make sure that it is this part of the SASE solution, part of the SD-WAN and security. You don't want your customer to focus on these two elements only, because this is today. Tomorrow, I need more services. I finished security, I finished connectivity. How can you help me to provide high-speed performance to the users? How can you help me host an application somewhere closer to the user, or terminate a VDI session closer to the user to give him more higher speed? Why higher speed? Because I want to modernize and transform my business. I need my user to be happy. Otherwise, he will not be happy. So those are the things that you need to focus on. Bigger picture. That's what makes VMware uniquely positioned among everybody else. Again, we are the competitive team. Engage us as soon as possible if you need any help with any specific use cases, because I don't want to be engaged in the last minute. Like if the customer is about to make a decision, it's too late to make a decision or to change his mind, unless you give him something that's shocking and change his mind. But if you start working with us from the beginning, we can change the customer perception about what SASE is, what problem does it to solve, what does it come to solve, what you need to select when it comes to SASE. That's what's important. Being able to engage early is the best to help you out. I think this is what I have for today, Andy. If there is any questions in the background that I can answer, I'll be happy to answer them.
Let's see, I've got one question here about, let's see, asking if you could shed some light on the actual management stack. So the number and name of tools VMware SASE solution would require. I'm trying to grasp the quote integrated here.
Yes, excellent, great question. I'm happy that he asked that question. So there's the SD-WAN manages everything before SASE from a VCO, something called Villa Cloud Orchestrator. And the Villa Cloud Orchestrator is a management station that sits in the cloud. You access that management station and you manage your SD-WAN devices. Now, that's the management station that I'm talking about, the VCO, Villa Cloud Orchestrator. The VCO now has the new version, has another tabs for the security services, especially the new version. If you are in one of the old ones, you will not see these extra tabs. And then the new software will have, and I think the upgrade, if I'm not mistaken, more than 10 POPs with this VCO new version. Then you start to see the cloud security services like the CASB, DLP, cloud web security, and ENI, all in one location and one unified management station. Now, that's what you're going to see, like different tabs, for the configuration. You configure the policy for the security, you configure the policy for the SD-WAN in one location. Now, that does not mean 100% they are integrated. And I'm happy that you asked this question. Having them in one location doesn't mean by all means they are integrated. Yes, it's good to have them in one management station, so I can jump between different platforms in one location. But integrated means different. Integration means the ANI policy that I'm creating here for a user experience application experience expectations will need to be injected on the SD-WAN in the background. I don't want to jump between SD-WAN and ANI to make sure that the self-healing happening manually. I need this to happen in the background. We are not having 100% integration. Nobody has. But since we have them in one location, the integration is easier for us. If you look at the ANI roadmap, ANI is the most important thing in the actual solution is the ANI, the user experience. Anything that you do in the underlay is irrelevant to the user. So ANI is the one that we focus the most to do all of these integration. In the future, you find this ANI integrating or injecting changes in the cloud web security, in the firewall as a service to reduce or push different policy to the user who misbehave, or the PC who misbehave because of the malware or anything happens on that PC. So that kind of integration that we are working on. If you look at our roadmap, you see these services are on the roadmap. Today we have the self-healing between the ANI and SD-WAN, and tomorrow we have more integration with the security services. I hope that answered your question, but the general word here, having one location does not mean integration. You need to look at what you are actually doing from the integrated solution perspective. Who's working with who in the background? If you don't have a lot of these things working in the background, or at least you are not working in the roadmap, then you are not focusing in the right action. Nobody there yet, nobody 100% have an integrated solution yet, but the potential of integrating these solutions, if you have them in one location, will be a lot more than somebody who has SD-WAN somewhere, POPs that doesn't have SD-WAN. How can he integrate these two if he doesn't have them in one location?
Makes sense. Good. Thank you.
No problem. Any more?
I don't see any other questions. And so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Definitely appreciate this useful conversation. I now have a much better understanding of this user everywhere, applications everywhere problem that you described, and then how the components of SASE and the architecture work together to solve this. So thanks for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
As we mentioned at the beginning, this presentation was recorded and your TAM will make that available to you. And please do join us next month on May 12th to look at Project Ensemble. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.